Hello everybody, this is Veronica Gibson, who's another of the Welsh Group artists who's come to have a chat about the work that she's got here at Found as part of 2020 exhibition. And Veronica, we've got 4 of your really lovely paintings here of the allotments on the Wappen, I think, aren't they, here in Brecon, which is very close to where you live?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Well, it's about a 5-minute walk. I used to live, I'm going to go rambling now. I used to live somewhere else that had a bit more land. And when I came here, I thought, oh, I've got a lovely little house. I just painted this colour. But I needed just some land to play on and grow things and be organic and things. And I love the old sheds. Yes. I love all the higgledy-piggledy, and people get very creative with old bit front doors and old net curtains and baths and all sorts of things. So it's great fun down there, and everybody's got their own patch. And actually during lockdown it was brilliant because we could go there for hours and, and just still chat to each other. But I grow veg and I paint there. I love it. And more people are going for complementary planting. Okay. So they're planting flowers with veg and so hence.
Yeah, I mean they're just the colours in these pictures are just absolutely glorious, and the picture on the top right, that's got a shed in it, isn't it? Does your own allotment have its own shed?
Yeah, we all get a shed. We sort of inherit a plot, and it's amazing because half a plot is £10 a year, which is like gosh, and which is quite ample for one person. And we all inherit a shed, which is great. And actually, some of them are getting a bit posh these days, which I'm not all for. Some of them are flat pack ones, which I, wouldn't sort of suit a painting so much. But no, I love it. I love it there. Actually, my parents had one in London during the war when they were young. Yes. Young together and young. And my grandparents are farmers in Ireland. Okay. And so,
But you'd consider yourself an artist rather than a gardener first and foremost.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely, yes. I was very fortunate in the colleges I went to, St Albans, where I grew up, near St Albans, and Canterbury, and I was very fortunate. That's where I did my degree, and the head of fine art had been taught by the head of fine art in Edinburgh, William Gillis. And actually I've got a book on William Gillis, and when I read it, it's everything I was taught, and it's about working outdoors and working directly. Alla prima means to put the first mark down, and that it stays. Well, unless you scrape it off, of course, but it stays. So it's not like the old-fashioned type of oil painting where you build up in layers. Yes. It was centuries ago. This is much more immediate, and I tend to finish paintings in one session.
Gosh, but these are little pictures. Do you normally do small paintings? They're not normally so small, are they?
Well, actually, I was going to bring it with me. It's pretty I didn't. But when I was at Canterbury, I borrowed the head of art's handheld paint box, and those go back years. Those go back centuries, actually. The painters used to go out before cameras. Well, actually, in the first week of art college, we were told no cameras, no erasers. So we were taught to work directly from observation. But these handheld paint boxes go back years, and Constable, for instance, used to go out and paint. That's where his small studies, he would have been done on the spot outdoors, and then he'd go back to his studio, and Turner as well, another artist of that time, go back to his studio and put those all around, and then work on his big Hayway or something. So, but when people look at Constable's work now, when you see it in exhibitions, actually if you see the small work, it's much more immediate, and you can sense that he was there.
Yes.
And when I work outdoors, it's not just the colour, it's the whole fact of being there. It's the birds, it's the sounds, it's the breeze. Actually, it's...
well, I think you capture that in these pictures, the sense of sort of the flowers sort of in the waving and just looking really as if they're just really lapping up that sunshine that we had during lockdown. It was amazing. It was amazing.
In May, it was wonderful.
Yeah,
we were there every day. All the allotmenteers were there every day. My allotments never looked so good, actually.
Does it still look like that now? I guess it's not, because those are early summer flowers, aren't they?
Well, actually, some of these are on. We've got an incredible volunteer gardener, because I teach art at Mind one afternoon a week. Well, I haven't done during the lockdown, but there's an incredible Mind allotment quite near mine, and we've got an incredible volunteer, Graham Hughes, who actually came in here with his one. And he's a fantastic gardener. And so he asked for a bit of commission, because he actually agrees. He said, without those lilies, you wouldn't have painted those flowers. So
I don't think we put that in the contract, did we? It's just like... Oh, okay,
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah. But as I said, more and more gardeners are going for complementary, and so they're adding flowers, and it looks lovely there.
Have you got the hives there, the bees? So does anyone have hives?
No,
there?
I thought about doing that, but we'd have to discuss that at the AGM and find people who sort of stayed put during the year to look after it, really, or have a rota.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a great idea, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
But we do have lots of... I noticed during the lockdown there were far more bees around.
Yes, and butterflies.
Yeah, and you could hear the birds, and it was lovely.
Yeah.
No, in some ways, it was, I know it's a terrible thing to happen, but it is a lovely time as well.
I think lots of people have said that. You know, there were positives, and I was talking to somebody earlier about. I hope we can hold on to the things that were positive about what we refound, regained, thought about, managed to do, sort of going forward. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I already find being in the gallery, I can't concentrate, because people come in and I don't get things done in the same way. And for artists, having that time to really develop
absolutely. There are lots of artist friends who really enjoyed that time, because everything closed, and so you could just focus. And
well, I think it worked both ways, because some said they found they'd lost their artistic mojo, and others liked it, and those that were trying to respond to this exhibition 2020 size.
Of course,
for them it wasn't necessarily so easy, because they normally do larger work, but it wasn't a problem for you.
No, going back to that question, a lot of my work, this handheld paint box, is about A4. It's landscape, so sometimes I do them portrait or landscape, depending on. So normally they're just a bit taller, so it wasn't too different. But I do work on a larger scale outdoors. And when I first did that, I thought, well, to get the same sense of mark making, the tools need to be bigger, and I tried to get palette knives in this country, and I couldn't, and in the end I had to get a printmaking palette knife, which is flat, and get somebody with oxyacetyl in Dewberry to put the kink in it for your knuckles to hold. Gosh. And I said, well, where did Cuff and Williams get his? And he used to get his made. He used to get his palette knives made. But then when I went to America, because everything's big in America, and in an art store there, they're huge palette knives for painting, because they're different to what builders would use or anything. They're much more flexible.
Interesting. It was because we had Gus Payne here this morning, whose work is here next to yours, and he was talking about the scale, and often his work is bigger, but he says for him, everything, when he does those smaller pictures, actually he uses tiny brushes, so everything about what he's doing is much finer and more detailed. It's just all scaled down, and rather than trying to use what he would normally work with on a smaller picture. So it was quite interesting listening to that.
And the other thing about it is exactly. And the other thing about working in one session is that I'm working what's called wet on wet. So I'm working directly, I'm putting paint on top of wet paint, and that's where the palette knife really comes into its own. You have to be quite decisive, because years ago, when I was learning on foundation course at St Albans, I would try and put wet paint onto wet paint, and of course it all ends up brown or grey and sludgy.
Yes.
So you've got to be very decisive when you put wet paint onto wet paint, and that's where really the palette knife comes in, and scraping away. And actually there's another term called sgraffito, which can become part of the painting, is where you scratch away and leave the scratch marks as part of the painting.
So when you're painting outside and it's wet on wet, this is where I'm going to show my naivety, how quickly does that dry? How long have you got before it begins to dry and you can't change what you're doing?
Okay, depending on the weather, because I have painted in different countries as well. And in the south of France, for instance, the paint became a lot more liquid. How long does it take to dry? Yeah, it takes days to dry actually.
So it takes days to dry. So you can still mould it and do what you want to do. It doesn't dry in the hot sunshine really quickly.
No, I've never used acrylic. I just sort of, that's why I said I was very fortunate with the colleges I went to, because St Albans, which is now Hertfordshire College of Art, back then, it's probably the same now, we were taught the basics, you know, how to stretch a canvas and with tacks instead of staples, how to size a canvas with rabbit skin size, which I don't use because I'm vegetarian anyway. But yeah, and all the basics, we were taught all the basics and all about oil paint. So really I've used oil paint since then, since I was 18 or 19.
So you almost understand the chemistry of how they work without knowing the chemist's information, if you like. You know? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And how long have you been a member of the Welsh Group?
I don't know exactly, maybe 10 years.
Right.
Maybe 10 years, yeah.
Yes. Maybe. And that's a collaborative group you've enjoyed being part of the group?
Oh, I love it, yeah, yes. Because it's so eclectic. There's so many different takes on life and the world and our place in the world as artists. And well, actually, my thought is that everybody has it within them to express themselves, because I'm a teacher as well. I teach lifelong learning around this area, and I think everybody has it in them, and it just needs sort of drawing out and confidence building. Yes.
And so the fact that you have younger members join the Welsh Group, and then you've got the grand gentlemen and ladies that have been with the group, it's very good for younger artists becoming part of the group, isn't
Absolutely,
it? So,
with their energy. And Karen Neera's one.
Yes.
She's just in for the year at the moment, but she's going to apply, and she's got lots of creative energy and ideas all the time. So
yes, great, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And obviously I've known Karen a long time, you know, through living in Brecon. So it's been great to be able to have obviously some local artists who are a member of the Welsh Group, but also some other artists from other parts of Wales, and to meet you all. So it's been great to host you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.